You're listening to a 4x4 Radio Network podcast.
Scott, where are you?
Here. I'm by the shrimp.
Oh, okay. Yeah, good. Don't forget, we have a show to do, right?
Show?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. The Jeep Show. You know.
Jeep show. Yeah.
Hey, hello.
Okay. So,
Guess what day it is, folks? And this is barely pre-recorded because I'm probably having a hangover from too much shrimp.
I didn't know there was such a thing.
Yeah, well, I ate too much.
Okay.
Prime rib, stuff like
Food
that.
coma.
Yes, and welcome as always to a brand new start of 2023 for show 177. That's right, kids. Act now and you can have yourself a whole year of shows from us at Ben Axel Media. Kevin and I, your host. I am the slapstick parts guy that tries to remember almost everything up to it, including the beginning of the show that I cannot seem to do that. Sitting directly across the desk from me is Kevin, my co-host. Kevin, introduce yourself, sir. Go right ahead.
Okay. Bartender, he's done.
Some people probably have hangovers. Stop yelling at me.
Exactly. Hey guys, welcome to On the Trail with Kevin and Scott. As you just heard, that was Scott coming back to life for the moment. We'll
Yes.
see how long we can keep him upright and on his feet. I did not know shrimp was coma inducing, but apparently it can be. I'm the engineer, the guy who reads the parts manuals and usually follows the parts manuals.
Parts
reads
manuals, wow.
Reads the instructions.
Man,
and
someone been hitting the
typically
crystal
follow-
light.
Well, we're not going to go there. Family show.
Whoa.
Family show. Anyway, folks, Happy New Year to each and every one of
Yes.
you. We hope you had a wonderful Christmas. We hope that the new year is going to be everything you can hope for in 2023.
Yes.
And guess what? We're still here. Mm-hmm. And it's up to you whether it's a good dream or a bad dream.
A fanciful unicorn strikes
I
again.
didn't say anything about that.
No, I'm talking about myself.
Okay. I won't ask if you got your pink fanciful unicorn in for Christmas.
That should be my Jeep's name. A fanciful unicorn. Or I also want to do Narwhal Hunter, but moving on.
Anywho.
Rails? What rails? We don't need no rails this year. We're off them.
So we start a bright new year. Scott, as we had said in the last show, has 2 Jeeps with 2 lift kits, and so far so good.
So far, so good.
And hopefully we get some progress on a certain small green Jeep in the new year.
Butch.
Yes, the Butch.
She named it Butch.
Okay, Butch.
After her dad.
Okay. Well, that's sweet. We're going to put a carburetor on it soon, maybe very soon. And the old one works well,
It's
except
bleeding out.
yeah, well, it's cracked and
Oh, no, it broke.
yeah. Oh, okay. It went the rest of the way.
Yes.
Okay. The original thing was the idle stop screw where it goes down had a little casting, and that left somewhere
The idle
between
stop,
World
idle
War
went.
II. Yeah, it left somewhere after World War II, and
The idle stop screw has left the chat.
it was gone for a while. Looking at the damage, and fortunately, in the Box O parts, several Box O parts that you got with Butch. There was another version of the carburetor, and it looks like it's intact, and it looks clean, suspiciously clean. But we shall see how that goes. So we'll be working on Butch over the next year as Autumn wishes, since she's really the one who's supposed to be doing the work. We're just providing moral support and immoral suggestions with tools.
Which she got more of them over Christmas. I got her some nice ratchet and gear wrenches.
So that's cool. That's cool. So, Scott, are you amongst the living?
Barely.
Barely,
Yes.
okay.
I'm here. I am amongst the living. I got a main line of caffeine to keep me awake.
Gotcha.
And some Gatorade to replenish the hydration. Not because I drank too much, but because it's 20,000 degrees above Celsius in the summer heat of Florida winter. But moving on to that.
That made a lot of sense.
It wasn't meant to, Just
But we do have something that was an interesting little reverse. I just cannot thank this person enough that they chimed in.
Oh, yes.
And you know the name? Patrick's. And Patrick is he here from Florida, or do you know where he's from?
He's on the planet Earth. He's a listener. And I'm sorry, Patrick, I'm going to get a message on this one. I think he is north because, I don't know exactly where he's at.
Oh, okay. Anyway.
We shall keep his location secret.
Ooh, because he has knowledge.
Exactly.
Patrick sent us a little bit of information. We had been talking previously about
the engine swaps
and some of the hazards that you get, particularly with the 4 liters. Okay. And one of the things is the 4 liters, particularly the later ones, came with an insulation plate, kind of a sandwich of fiberglass and aluminum, and it was up on the manifold for the intake around the injectors, and it stopped heat soak to some degree, not perfectly. And in the injectors, okay, and then the fuel rail. And the earlier TJs, 97 to 04, didn't have that, and were very much subject to a miss that would come up, particularly after you'd driven the Jeep hard and maybe stopped and got gas or went in and grabbed a burrito and came back out while the engine was still hot, and you'd fire it up and you'd get a cylinder 3 or cylinder 4, 3 being more common, misfire code.
Yeah.
And it would shake like a wet dog for a few minutes. And then you'd pull out and drive away, and eventually it would clear itself up, and you'd forget, and the light would go out because the cylinder misfire had stopped. And its most common cause was vapor lock in the fuel injector due to heat soak, because 3 and 4 are the 2 center cylinders. Anyway, we talked about that the later models had a heat shield in there that helped pretty dang well. It wasn't perfect, but it did. And people would make mistakes doing work and take them off and damage them or throw them away, and then all of a sudden they'd start to develop the heat soak vapor lock. And he pops off, guess what, guys? I'm pantomiming. I don't really tell you what,
Well, no, we were talking about engine stuff back and forth.
Right.
And then he asked how mine was running.
And lo and behold, he found on Amazon, not 1, not 2, but 3 different companies who now make fuel rail injector cover kits for the Jeeps. Now, they specifically list them for the 97 through the 04s because those are the years that didn't come with factory ones.
Right.
But obviously, if you have a later Jeep in the 5 or 6 or another model with the 4 liter and you're having the heat soak issue, I'm pretty sure this would fit since the engines and the intake systems are pretty much identical.
We get a stapler. We'll make it work.
And they vary in price because they vary in kit content from 32 to 39 to 55. And the most expensive one seems to have socks to go over the injectors, additional foil for wrapping around the fuel rail, as well as a new made heat plate that slips in between the injectors and kind of laps up. And it's even got the little holes for mounting it down to the clip system that the rail sticks on. So it is available. And all you have to do when you look at it is go to Jeep 4.0 fuel rail heat shield is the way I searched for it. And lo and behold, it came up. There's one by Design Engineering, which is one he recommended that he bought and said that worked really well for him. There's a Hook Road version, and then there's a U-Box TJ fuel rail. And all of these came up with, let's see, looking at the ratings, the U-Box was 4 stars out of 5 with 24 reviews. The Hook Road fuel rail covers, which was simpler, didn't have some of the extra wraps on either of these first two, was 3.5 stars versus 3.8 on the U-Box. Hook was 3. And then Design Engineering was 4.6 out of 5 out of 940 ratings. So that's not a bad kit going by the Amazon ratings. And again, your results may vary, but I just thought we'd share that. Patrick was kind enough to share it with us. Thank you very much, Patrick. And we'd share it to the rest of you guys out there in TJ and LJ land, as well as the XJs and others, and anybody that came with that 4 liter, and maybe having some heat soak issues and drivability after the thing starts to miss and you get that wonderful, cylinder 3 or cylinder 4 misfire code.
Yeah, because the LG is still crisp. I mean, she still does great. And again, I never actually, when I got here today, I never tried to fire it back up to see if it missed because I just got off a long pull off the interstate.
Right.
But
so that's not too bad. Mm-hmm. There's actually, it start throwing up the 4.0 liter fuel injected insulator sleeves from Mopar. Who knew that Mopar actually made them? You think they figured something out maybe?
Yeah, writing is on the wall there, kids.
Yeah. So just wanted to share that with everybody. And again, give a huge shout out to Patrick for sharing that information. That's absolutely awesome. And we're sharing it with you in case you're having the same thing. Mm-hmm. And I know mine's a little torn, tattered, and repaired with the stainless steel tape from the HVAC system. I'm going to look into one of those probably to keep slightly altered from having the same problem.
Being slightly overwarm.
Yeah, that happens occasionally.
Exactly. And for my next trick, I'll speak in the English language. Another thing, too, with like a couple other listeners that we've talked to. One, unfortunately, the name is escaping me at this moment, but we got a little update. He replaced his alternator, which was having an issue with once it, I guess, got to operating temperature, it would lose the everything. It was like an internal failure on the alternator. Yeah. So far, he replaced the alternator, and everything's doing well. The only problem is, though, is that all the wheeling spots are closed for the season.
Yeah.
So he won't have a chance to. That was Brandon.
Brandon to go out and mud soak it.
Yeah, that was Brandon. So with the alternator. So hopefully, Brandon, when you get the season back open, you can see if it works and has solved your problem, because I think that might be what was causing your internal failure.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about was that. He had sent some questions about, can they intermittently fail, and, do they have those kinds of issues? And the answer is yes, that the diode pack and rectifier pack in the alternator can, in fact, heat soak and start to break down, and you can lose phases. And we've discussed this on other shows about the fact that your alternator in a car, Jeep, truck, whatever,
forklift,
okay, isn't really what runs the electrical system. And it's a common misconception. Everybody thinks that that's where the power is supposed to come from. Well, yeah, no. I hate to say it. It does generate power, but it's not smooth DC power. It's actually an alternator. It's a 3-phase alternator if you really want to get picky, which means it makes a sinusoidal, a wavy output. Each wire goes positive, negative, and it has a little internal regulator that and a bridge that converts and switches so that it kind of puts all the positive peaks together and all the negative peaks together on a different wire. And then you overlap the 3 phases and you get this bumpy DC, 13.8 when it's putting out a load, and it's bumpy ground, and electronic components don't like that. In the older cars where you had light bulbs and your heater blower, they could handle the bumpy stuff, okay?
Yeah.
And therefore, I can still remember old people we'd talk about it was, you can just start the car and then pull the battery back out and drive home on the alternator. You could. I won't disagree with that.
Yeah.
You do that now, you're going to die. Because today's electronics, including those in the Jeeps, requires smooth DC. And the best way to think of it is an alternator is an electric pump. It pumps electricity. Pumps have pulses. Most electronic devices do not like pulses. There's no filter. If you have a power supply on a TV, a computer, a printer, anything in a house, you'll see that you bring the power in, you run it through a transformer to step it down to the lower AC voltage, but then you go into a rectifier, which turns it to DC, and then you have a bunch of little capacitors lined up, and from big ones down to little ones. And each one of those smooths those bumps out to give you clean, smooth DC.
Right.
Could an alternator run a car? Yep. But you'd need a capacitor bank the size of a battery. Well, you need a battery for starting anyway. Mm-hmm. And a battery is like a big water tank. It takes the bumps out. It's like a pond. You can dump rough water in one end, and if you have a nice smooth overflow at the other side, it'll come out as a nice smooth flow. So in an automotive application, the battery acts as the surge tank and the supply. So power for your vehicle, including your Jeeps, comes from the battery, and the alternator's job is to keep the battery charged. And that's really long and short of it. That's kind of what it is. And so when the alternator, the rectifier, breaks down and begins to get faulty, and let's just say the waves get wilder, rougher coming out of it. The pump motion is more violent, and you exceed the ability of the battery to provide that buffering and stilling motion to get the smooth DC out. And some of that noise starts to get through the battery and show up in your electrical system. And your radio start doing weird little things like floating in and out and bouncing around.
My favorite is the headlamps dimming.
Or your turn signals working intermittently, or wiper going swish, 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 because your vehicle is designed to run on smooth DC power. Simple as can be. And alternators have become so reliable, we forget about them.
Yeah.
But there's more than just a spinning coil of wire inside there. There's a whole rectifier circuit in the back, voltage regulator circuit that reads the voltage, off of the battery and says, "Oh, the battery system is down below 12.3 volts. We better charge it by putting in 12.8, 13.2, 13.8, right. To make up the difference." And so those components are, a silicon-based component. And as reliable as they are, I've seen them go 100,000 miles, and I've also seen them die at the worst possible moment.
Yeah. It never goes when it's convenient.
Yeah. It never breaks down when you're right outside the parts store.
Well, you said it on the last show. New doesn't necessarily mean good.
Correct.
And that's the thing where
particularly in the world of reman.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with remanufactured components. That's what we do to our Jeeps every time we work on them. We're remanufacturing them. We take it apart. We try to find what's wrong. We fix it. We put it back together. But the vehicle as a whole still isn't new. It's not brand new forged metal, struck steel, molded plastic, whatever you want to choose. So I have no problem with using reman components. It's just the quality of the remanufacturer.
That's the catch.
Some of them are very good. An alternator, quite frankly, when you remanufacture most alternators, okay, there's a field coil and there's the rotor coil. And the rotor coil, they basically take it over to a machine and they read it. Is there a short? No. Yes, it goes into a scrap pile or it goes into a rewind pile, in either case. If either one, but if they test good, they clean them. They may or may not re-dip them in insulation fluid. It's like a varnish. The better ones do. The cheaper ones don't. Okay. And then what are the wear components? There's brushes, there's bearings, and there's the electronics, the rectifier and the regulator.
Yeah. Even though it's solid state, finger quotations, it's still a wear item. It's
still a wear item, folks. Solid state doesn't mean last forever. They can last a long time, but how many times have you jumped it, spiked the system? How many times have you
man your winch,
overloaded it? Electronics do die eventually.
Well, let's be honest. You have a product generating its own heat, sitting in an engine bay with a giant heater at over 250 degrees.
Every bit.
It's kind of like, okay, how many times can you work being baked to death?
Right. And the point is, the fact they last as long as they do is fantastic. But the rebuilder, the better ones put new bearings in. Mm-hmm. The cheaper ones go, is it making much noise when I spin it?
Nope. Yeah, they just fix what's broken, paint it, send it on down the line.
And whereas, like I said, a good quality reman will just automatically put in a new set of regulator and voltage regulator and rectifier circuit.
Thank you.
It's a chip. It's a little module unit, and they bolt new ones in. Some just test the old ones and put them back in. And again, all of this is based on, what level you're paying for a reman. Yes, you can get brand new too, but if you do, they're very expensive. And guess what? If you get the better reman, it's as good as new because the wear components have been replaced. They put in new bearings. They put in new electronics. Well, that's what comes in the new alternator. The difference is the case, okay, and the wiring. But there's no moving components there. There's nothing really to die. So I have no problem with that. But
you used to be able to tell. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. You used to be able to tell if it came with a lifetime warranty.
Yeah.
Lifetime warranty usually meant that a lot of stuff was replaced and then, you had like.
It was going to last longer than the vehicle it was in.
Yeah, or you had the white box, which is a 1-year warranty. And everyone goes, "Oh, I got this great deal on this alternator. I got the mechanic version of it." Okay, you got to remember this mechanic version, which is considered white box, is most technicians only warranty their stuff for 30 days.
Yep.
Or some will do 1 year, 12,000 miles. So it's only going to last 1 year, 12,000 miles. So they literally just fix what's broken, slap some paint on it, send it on down the line. Good shops, the lifetime warranty. The problem is that while you get the new part for free, the shop doesn't get reimbursed from the manufacturer sometimes on that part. So I always look for lifetime warranties.
Yeah.
Because they usually stand by their product a little more. And if something should happen 3 years down the road, I at least don't have to shell out the money for a new alternator.
Yeah. So the point is I guess with twofold. One, can a alternator that still appears to be putting out current, people say voltage, but it's really current that charges a battery, that's the volume, cause problems in the electrical system? And that, unfortunately, is an absolute yes, it can. And it does many, many times, because we continue to buy vehicles where the manufacturers are trying to make us happy, and when they add more gadgets and more gigas and more electronics. And, we went nuts when we finally got a CAN bus, which was I forget what it stands for, but computer something, but it's a data bus where the computer can talk to the dashboard, can talk to this, and all of this is on a single pair of twisted wires. And that's great. But then we started adding body control modules because we wanted to have automatic door unlocking and light times and these kind of things. And then they added entertainment modules, and now they have remote back body modules. And
hey, Ford even has the GEM module, General Electric module. And I'm not making that up.
No, you're not. And all of these are little computers, plain and simple. It's like you've got a mainframe that's your powertrain control module, but nowadays, those used to be the boss, and most of them still are. But now body control modules are starting to be raised in hierarchy, So it's like, okay, the engine is there, but it's just pushing the car around. You got your Bluetooth, and you got your built-in cell phone, and you got your monitor system, and you've got your entertainment and video screens, and
safety systems.
And you've got your safety systems. And so BCM systems are now getting in priority. All of those are computers. Try powering up your iPad with an arc welder.
Hey, it's both electronics.
Yeah, and I mean, it's only 24 volts for an arc welder. It just happens to be really, really rough and a lot of amperage. You'll burn it to smithereens. So power systems in automobiles, I'm using it deliberately as the general category, and of which Jeep is part of, are becoming more and more, how do I put it, genteel. Okay, they're trying to make pure, clean, data level power sources, and your alternator is the source of the energy, but the battery is essentially the buffer between that and the system. And if the system exceeds the battery's capabilities, and batteries can do a fair amount of buffering, but they're not like a filter system. Yeah. That's why if you are into the tuner market, where you like your stereo system and your big amplifiers, what's the first thing they tell you to do on your power feed?
Put a bigger battery in. Put
straight to the battery and put this filter on it.
Yeah.
And that's to get that clean power. So,
well, it's like when you have the generators, and you have an inverter generator, or the good old dirty generator.
Yeah. And so if you turn around, and if you're just, if you can turn around, you can tell me, well, Autumn probably will, I've got my 42 GPW. I'm like, knock yourself out, kiddo. Not much is going to hurt those.
No.
And whether you run an alternator or whether you run a generator. And here's an interesting fact. A generator actually puts out smoother power than an alternator.
Yeah.
But it's less efficient, it's less effective, and it can't pump out the amperage.
Yeah. Well, one of the things,
since we like winches that draw 500 amps, and 800 amps at a full pull, you might want to,
Well, one of the things that being in the parts business, when the early 2000s, a lot of manufacturers were thinking about going to 24 volt batteries in cars.
Yeah.
because all the electronics and everything else. And that's why, like Kevin and I talk about firing the parts cannon. It can be very difficult chasing down gremlins.
Yeah.
I saw many a tech lose years off their life trying to chase the electrical gremlins.
Oh, yeah.
And it's very interesting to watch. But again, the days of just pull the negative, turn off the battery. If the car dies in the battery, the alternator is bad.
Yeah.
Well, you're also taking off your ground off your electronics. It's like pulling the ground.
Well,
leg
you'll
off
kill
your
the
house.
car immediately, and you may damage it too in this
Right.
day and age, as well as you might get zapped.
But it's one of those things where the times are changing, and
The time has changed,
Yeah.
and it's changing more. You're driving a power plant, an electrical power plant, beyond the fact that it's motivation to move you down the road, and it requires some additional skills. We had another discussion with a person who hooked up a stereo system. I'm sorry. No, that's a different one. This one hooked up some rock lights,
yes,
and he turned them on, and the wiper went on. Mm-hmm. He turned them off, and it went off. And they're like, "Why in the name of God's green earth did?" And I said, "Well, what else did you do?" Well, they just put on new high arch fenders. The manufacturer doesn't matter. I said, "Really? Okay. What'd you do for grounds?" "Well, what do you mean?" "We bolted them on." "What's that got to do with the wipers?" Well, the controls for the wipers, folks, is a relay. It's a mini relay, MINI, miniature. It's one of the little 30 amperes, okay? It has to go to a ground. That ground better be tied to the battery. But here's another thing that's interesting about most of the modern switches. When you turn them off, many of those switches don't just disconnect the wire. They actually themselves switch to ground. If the device is ground, the switch goes to ground, so it's off. In other words, both legs of the switch would be to ground, to earth, to negative terminal, whatever description you want to use.
Right.
It's inherently safe, okay? So you walk over to what you think is a ground wire, and you hook up your rock lights ground to the ground wire. Well, you turn your rock lights on and you just put power on the ground circuit, but the ground circuit's disconnected because you changed the fenders and put painted fenders that are painted between the body panel and the new fender. So there isn't a ground that way. And electricity's pretty determined to find its way through. And it says, "Oh, look at this. The wire also goes this way. And, oh, I'm going through a coil to a relay and then back out. Oh, the switch is grounded. Hey, I got ground." So your rock lights come on, but the relay goes, "Oh, I got power on me." Click.
there go the wipers. Now, let me ask you this question.
Yeah. So
Now, let's say I find that wire. Will it show up with a test light or a test lead showing that it has power, but because it switched to ground, it won't show that?
correct.
Okay.
That's the problem, is people going, "But I tested and it showed ground." Yeah, did you turn the switches? Did you try? I'm a big one to say don't tap existing grounds, unless you put them in and know that they're grounds. If you have a wiring diagram, you can find a ground. But you've got to make sure your ground isn't being used by something else that, needs the other direction.
Yeah.
The classic one is blower motors. Blower motors, folks, when you turn your blower motor for the speed setting, you are not changing the power to the motor. Not in the sense that the feed power.
You're not going 3
not
amps, 6 amps, 9
right.
amps.
What you have, particularly in Jeeps, is you have a line from the battery through a 40 amp fuse directly to the blower motor. No switch, just a 40 amp fuse. And then the line that comes out of the motor, which you'd think of as the ground, goes to the switch. And the switch has up to 4 or 5 settings, and those go back to a resistor bank that's in your air duct being cooled by the very
air.
blower air as it is. And if you go directly to ground, of course, you get full 12 volts out of the motor to the resistor. There is no resistor, so you get full 12. You get high speed. You go a step over, maybe it's got a resistor that drops it to 9 volts that gets through. Or you can drop it more to 6 volts, so you get more to 3 volts. I don't know those numbers exactly,
Right.
but that's where the speed comes from. But what are you switching? You're not switching power. You're switching the ground, the earth side, the drain, if you want to call it, whatever makes your head work around that concept. And so if you just go willy-nilly under your dash and start clipping things or changing body parts. I didn't touch any wires. I put everything back the way it goes. But you broke the ground path, okay? Because if you go to every Jeep that I have seen made, all the way up to your Gladiator, you will see a bunch of black wires up above your headlight location under a bolt on the grill frame on both sides. That's a ground. Right. If you disconnected, and by the way, that grill frame mounts on a rubber isolator. Okay. Yeah, there's a metal bolt through the middle that's kind of holding it down, but there's a washer and a rubber isolator on that too. Yeah. And then, so normal ground path is, well, when Jeep builds the Jeep, the fenders and radiator grill and the body are all bolted together as raw steel. And then it goes into the dip tanks and the primer tanks and all that stuff. So you have the fender everything is electrically contiguous.
Yep.
Until you take it apart and put new parts in. And I do it too. You clean everything up and you paint everything.
Right.
And you bolt it back together. Maybe your bolts work as grounds. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Okay. What I usually tell most folks is go on Amazon. I've been pushing them a lot, but it's just an easy place. But you can do it any way you want and get braided ground straps. And they make them in like 6-inch lengths, 8-inch lengths, 10-inch lengths. 6s are usually pretty good. And then you go to your new components and your firewall and you find a bolt and you clean it off and you make sure there's bright steel underneath and you put one into that ground strap, tighten it down, loop it over, hook it to the fender, from the firewall to the fender, from the fender to the grill shell. And you do that on both sides. You have a full loop. Then you can check really quick with a voltometer, VOM as they call it. Put one terminal on the negative terminal, put the unit onto ohms, or if you have a continuity that reads ohms, it isn't just the beep, folks, for those of you who know what I'm talking about, of a continuous circuit. You want to check the ohm reading. That's OHM, which is the resistance. And you want to check it to the battery terminal connected to the battery.
Right.
Okay. And you want to go around the Jeep. And you want to go, okay, that ground screw all the way up on the driver's front corner fender on the driver's side headlight. You see the screw with all the black wires are. Poke it with the other end and read it. You should have continuity. If you have the beeper turned on, it should beep at you.
Right.
And you should read 5 ohms or less. That is Chrysler Jeep's standard for a good circuit. No more than 5 ohms from any device to the battery. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you that that isn't optimal. That's minimal. Optimal is less than 1 ohm.
Yeah.
And it takes a little effort to get there. The funny thing is we've done a few Jeeps where we've gone around, taken the time to clean spots using either existing bolts or putting new bolts in, using internal tooth star washers, okay, that grab into the metal on both the fitting, the panel and the eyelet itself, but it then kind of blocks out the outside because it's smooth on the outside rather than regular star washers, which hold crud.
Right.
And yes, those are available at internal star washers. The easiest place for me is Ace Hardware. It has boxes of every size in the world. And you tighten those down and then you do an ohmage check. And then you can come back and you can paint over that.
Yeah.
Quite happily to seal it up. And everybody that we've done that with has been blown away. Oh my God, my lights are brighter.
Yeah.
Everything works better. My stereo's clean. Yes. Electricity has to get back to the battery.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm on a tirade here.
You are. Well, that's one of the things. Like that's why I raised my hand a minute ago because when you did the video with Autumn and you talked about the star washers, about how it was all full of crud, but yet in the inside was nice and beautiful and metally. Right. That's what I was talking about, to make sure you take those time to do that because, ground will, like water, will find the easiest path. And sometimes it's not what you want it to do.
Yeah, it turns something else on getting through there. And we've talked about this on other shows, is the infamous Chrysler wigwag.
Yeah.
I think it ended with the TJs.
And you had to manually trick it on the J case to get the little round marker light to blink.
But the wigwag is the fact that during the day, the side marker lights on a TJ, a YJ, and I think even the later CJs, and I know all the Chrysler vehicles themselves in that era did, the side marker light and the turn signal indicator on the front turned in unison during the day. but at night they blinked in alternate. In other words, the turn signal was on while the side marker was off, and the wide side marker was on, and the turn signal was off.
Wig, just like police headlamps.
Yeah. And that's due to the fact that Chrysler figured out that they could ground the side marker light through the turn signal light, because there was always one leg available on the turn signal.
It was a happy floating ground.
And so it was a floating ground. And we did a show, a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago, because I wanted that feature in my TJ, but I also wanted LED. And LED can't run backwards.
Right.
And I figured out a way to make up a wiring harness adapter that allows me to wig-wag with LEDs. And everybody, my friends who are in the electrical world kind of go, you can't do that. Oh, wait. Did it involve diodes? Yes, it did. Never mind.
Yeah. It went from you can't to, never mind, you did do that.
Yeah. So, I tend to be a little bit, what would you call it? Aggressive about ground driven, because so many of the calls that I get asked questions to fix revolve ultimately around a loss of ground or a misuse of the ground, because people forget it. You see the wires and that's all you think about. You don't realize is that those fuel injectors, have to be grounded. The spark plug's a classic example, folks. Well, there's only one wire at the top of the spark plug.
Mm-hmm.
Where's all the rest of that arc voltage, that little spark that if you touch that wire and it's got a crack in it, you get your kicked. Well, where does that go? Well, it goes through the base of the spark plug into the head and back to the battery. And if you don't have a good engine ground, you don't have good spark.
Right.
If you have trouble with your starter moding, it doesn't start smoothly. Sometimes the crank is going, well, how are you grounding? If that engine ground isn't there, it goes to the transmission, and the transmission goes through the back plate and through the transmission. I have literally seen motor mounts melted because the ground was trying to go through the bolt of the motor mount, because starters draw enormous. I think winch manufacturers have it right. To heck with this grounding through steel. You ever notice there's always two cables? Put this one on the red, that one on the black. Go straight to the battery because they don't want to have that problem. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox in 2023.
And I'll try to trip on it. No, I'm kidding.
You can stand on it when you have a topic you're worth.
Well, no, actually, I'm going to kick it under my feet for a few minutes.
Okay, well, then how about you do that?
Well, here's one of the things, and again, the internet always finds a way to...
But the internet's always right.
I didn't do it. See, that just shows you how badly I am. Nah, I broke it. It doesn't matter anymore. Wow, it really... Oh, that's why. I had the wrong slider up. Okay, well, moving on from that. No, it's very interesting because we're going to start off the year with our good foot forward. And I was on the interwebs, and one of the guy posted a picture of the new Bronco next to a Jeep.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, exactly.
And you thought mine was decisive.
Yeah.
derisive.
And a comment was made something about, this person was very pro Jeep. And one of the other patron of this website posted, a question and a comment. And I thought it was kind of weird. And the guy said, well, if they hand you the keys to it, you'd take it for free.
Oh, he's talking about the
Bronco Raptor.
Bronco Raptor. Do you like it? Would you drive it?
Yeah.
That kind of a... and the guy was like, "Oh no, kind of thing."
And so he said, you took it for free, and I said, "Well, not really. It's not really my bag." I'm grateful for the Bronco out because again, that's why we got the 392. Competition is good. It's going to allow Jeep to step up the whole 9 yards. And then the guy goes, "Well, you're in denial because Ford is eating Jeep's lunch and blah blah blah." And I'm just
really,
and it's like literally the record across with the arm. Noise, because I'm like, what? And so finally, I had to get on my soapbox a little bit. And I said, buddy, let me tell you something right now. One, I own Ford stock. Yep. I hope they do well because that makes me money. Number two, the Bronco's just not my bag, because again, I'm not a big fan of IFS, but I also do think again that's great for competition. But having the Gladiator and the LJ, and now seeing and helping out with the GPW project, I have my hands in 80 years of Jeep history. So while the Bronco's nice, it's just not really my bag. And guess what? That's okay.
It really is.
Not everything has to be, if you don't like it, there's this archetype of I have to make you understand why it's perfect and beautiful. Like, it's back to the old Rubicon thing. It's not my job to make people understand. And I started looking at this, and this person was rabid. Every single person that posted a negative comment about well, you don't understand. And I'm like, guy, why are you on a Jeep TJ page?
Yeah.
It's like, then go get a Bronco, and that's what's kind of like, I'm sitting there going, everyone chill, because I started really looking at these things and seeing these things going, I've done parts for a very long time. Yes, a lot of people are having Gladiator motor problems. A lot of people are having Bronco motor problems too, and there's a comment on some of the dealership pages I'm on where people have gone to the new Bronco owners because, again, it's so much better than a Jeep. Well, why is my soft top leaking? What, first day? Welcome to the club, But
it's a soft top.
There's this predisposition that because it's a Bronco made by Ford, it's 10 times better than the Jeep. And I'm like, it's probably got its strong points, absolutely. But better to me is subjective.
It's very much what's important to you. And it's your preferences. It really is. That's why there isn't just one. I'm sorry. I still remember Cold War where the Soviet, what was the car? The Tata or something like that is whatever it was.
The Lada.
Lada.
Yeah.
I knew it was something like that, and it was, you wanted car, you get car. Here, Lada, 2 years you come get, we make for you.
The body panels were an inch thick.
Yeah.
It would literally outlast everything on the face of the planet, but
it wouldn't run all the time.
That two-stroke 2-cylinder engine would get you to 35 miles an hour in a pinch.
Yeah, in a day or two. But anyhow, the point is that everybody has preferences. Everybody has likes and dislikes. And if we were all the same, the Jeep wouldn't be special.
Yeah.
Okay. But I don't deride people who don't like the Jeep and want to drive the Bronco. I don't really have a problem with that. I don't know. It just, to me, it's an alien concept. We like what we like and we drive what we drive. I like the Jeep because of the history, the camaraderie. Mm-hmm. That's the thing I think the Jeep still has that draws me in. As I go anywhere with my TJ and pull in, and if somebody else has a Jeep in the parking lot, I immediately have a conversation. They're a nice Jeep, or what year, or something. It's always something. You can get gas and commiserate over the lousy fuel mileage at the gas pump. It doesn't really matter. You have something in common, but it's no different that, I'll admit right now, and I may lose half our listeners, but, I graduated from Penn State University. I'm not a football guy, so that's also why I don't have a whole lot of. But anyway, the point is I wear a Penn State shirt somewhere, and if somebody else went to Penn State, there's immediately you went to what year? Did you graduate? If you anything that you have a commonality on, Scott just facepalmed.
No, I just sitting there going, all this time I thought you were saying I was stinky because you wear the PU shirt.
It's actually,
how old is that joke?
Well, it's PSU.
Oh, okay.
But, whatever floats your boat.
Sorry.
You got to remember, it was Penn State, Carnegie Mellon, the whole Pennsylvania quadrant up there and all the insanity. And, I went there for a simple reason. They had a very good engineering school that I could afford.
Yeah. Well, and that's another thing, too, back to, again, with my dealership experience.
Yeah.
I remember when the Toyota FJ came out.
Yep.
Everyone was like, well, this is going to be the Jeep killer, because it came out in 2007, I think. Don't hold me to that. But it was around that time period. And everyone said, this is going to be the Jeep killer. It's Toyota quality with Toyota off-road and the FJ heritage and all these things. And they expected to absolutely obliterate the Jeep lunch. Did it sell well? First couple of years, it absolutely did.
Yeah, it started in 06 and ran to 14.
Yeah, okay. So did it start off really good? Yeah, but you know what, though? It was not the Jeep killer because they came out with the four-door JK series. which was a huge hit for, some people would say soccer moms. Some people would say they'd like to have their kids with legs,
Yep.
And not have to just cut them off every time they wanted to take little Timmy for a ride. But so Jeep did it right, and they got a lot of things wrong. I'll admit it. The Jeep is not the penultimate. I have people all the time saying, well, I'm thinking about getting a Jeep. What do you think? Well, what's your favorite car? Well, I really like the Ford Excursion. Don't get a Jeep.
Definitely not a Wrangler.
Well, why shouldn't I get a Jeep? And I'm like, because it's small, it's cramped, it's going to leak water, it's going to ride rougher than your Excursion, because the Excursion's a rolling living room. Mm-hmm. And I said, you're going to be cramped. Your fuel mileage, well, you're driving an Excursion, so the fuel mileage will be better. Slightly. But I said, you're going to have a lot of wind noise. Well, I don't know if I should. And that's my point, because, again, while it has that ruggedness to it, even though it's packed full of computer stuff, it's still they're trying to do as many creature comforts as they can. And it's still rugged, but it still rides rugged. And that's like, again, with this Bronco, everyone wants to come and eat the Jeep's lunch, and it's made by Ford. It's going to be the Jeep killer. And again, I hope it does well, but at the same time, take a playbook from Toyota. The world's largest manufacturer of vehicles with undisputed quality. Now, again, working for a Toyota dealership, I can tell you we did $1 million a month in service, and it wasn't oil changes and tires. I'll tell you that. But the point is that it's. I'm very interested to watch and see how this plays out, because again, this vehicle came out when they're asking for $40,000 over MSRP pricing. Mm-hmm. So these people were paying $70,000 for this Bronco plus, and I'm like, ugh, that is a wallet stinger. Is it going to hold its value like a Jeep Wrangler does? These are questions we don't have answers to yet. But again, I started looking at this saying, guys, get what vehicle works for you. As I was talking to a gentleman the other day when I was at the gas station, I made a point call because he said, well, is that all you do, wheel with Jeeps? I'm like, I'll wheel with anybody.
Yeah.
Absolutely. H2s, H1s, Hummers, Land Crushers, Nissan Pathfinders. I'll wheel with anybody. Xteras, because it's fun. It's camaraderie. It's a fun thing. Now, do I think the Jeep is better? In my opinion, yes. On some things.
Yeah.
Every manufacturer has an area where it shines. Mm-hmm.
I have my opinions on that, and I think it boils down to, and it's so far, I'm seeing the fact that the Jeep allows personalization to a level that nobody else comes close to.
The Honda Civic.
Yeah, kind of in add-ons, but I'm talking about the Jeep itself. Let's pick a Bronco, and I'm not deriving on the Bronco. I love the early U100s.
Absolutely.
They started that way. You remember that you could take the doors off an early U100 and get panels that made a cutout like a Jeep door, and they were really popular. And you could do some of that in the earlier ones, but then Ford moved away from the external hinges and went internal on everything, and the welded fittings rather than the bolted. Jeep has stayed very true to the old, and I don't know how long it'll continue.
Yeah.
But we have bolted together componentry. You can change out the fenders on the front of a Jeep without even breathing hard. Mm-hmm. You can pull off the flares in minutes and replace them. If you don't like full doors, you can put half doors on by simply taking the lock pin out and lift the door off. Do you follow what I'm saying?
And now they're aluminum, so they weigh 300 pounds less each.
Correct. And they put the connectors on the door cables to undo anybody else's, including my wife's car, my truck, my pickup and those. I have to actually disassemble the door to get to the connector, the body connector, and pull it apart. And oh, by the way, when you unplug it, it's not remove fuse 4 to stop the dinging. It's the body control module goes nuts, and the nanny state kicks in. To me, that's the core difference why Jeeps are still undisputed in my mind as the off-road vehicle of choice, because you can make it yours. The Ford is coming along, but again, they kept a lot of the Ford mentality,
right?
As far as the electronics, and it's harder to take things apart, and they don't want you to mess with it. It's almost like Jeep said, oh, well, you guys are going to take it apart anyway. To heck with it. Let's just make it easy.
That's like the Tupperware bumper thing. Is when the JK first came out, oh, it's got these plastic cheap fenders and these plastic cheap bumpers, and if you hit a tree, the fender pops off. Well, that's what it's designed to do. One, but two, you're going to replace them anyways.
It's like, yeah.
So we can increase the vehicle by price point of $9,000 by putting steel on everything. But then again, now you're going to replace it anyways.
Well, that's a theory. It's just interesting. But no, I'm with you. I mean, I really don't deride anybody. I'm not negative because they don't choose a Jeep. If it doesn't work for you, that's fine. I went Jeepless for several decades because it didn't work for me.
Yeah.
When I had a daughter, and I was down in Washington D.C. and working a job where off-roading was really not feasible. I did move up eventually to a pickup truck, but no. Drive what you're going to drive. Enjoy what you're going to enjoy. And I'm sorry that people out there get so wrapped up either in the Jeep itself and become Jeep snobs, or in a competing brand and want to downplay the Jeep. I'm sorry. It's still an unbroken lineage back to World War II. Mm-hmm. It's still seeing official service to this day, in some branches and different models. There's a heritage to it. But to me, again, I go back to the same thing. It's the only vehicle that comes stock in the world with friends.
Yeah. Well, and you even talked about it when we brushed over this conversation over Subway lunch.
Yeah.
What works for you? Mm-hmm. And the other thing too, and this is another thing when I kind of sit there and raise an eyebrow, again, knowing what I've done.
Yeah.
Even Mark's last show, right. He had a problem with his 3.6 Pentastar motor. It ate itself.
Yeah.
Okay. And Jeep did not handle the dealership did not handle the reinstall.
I was gonna say, it wasn't Jeep. Jeep got a new motor for him, but
and Jeep is taking care of him. The dealership botched a lot of things, and that kind of hurts my heart because they always could do better, but at the end of the day, it's just human factor, human beings behind it. But at the same time, I'm watching people, and I see this comment all the time, is especially on different off-road pages, is, a person will post about, they're having problems with their Jeep 3.6 motor.
Yeah.
Because again, they had a bad batch of them, guys.
They did.
And everyone, well, you wouldn't have that problem if you bought a Toyota. See my previous comment. We did $1 million a month in sales, and it wasn't oil changes and tires. Everyone has problems.
There are always, I don't care what line you pick, there were better models and worse models. There were better motors and worse motors. There were problem child issues that may have taken anywhere from 1 generation to 3 to correct by the manufacturers. It's kind of tough to point fingers at any one thing.
Yeah.
And people can say what they want, but they vote, so to speak, and I use that in finger quotes, vote. They vote with their dollars.
Yeah.
And right now, Jeep's still getting pretty high votes.
Yeah. Well, and then that's what I love, again, other manufacturers stepping up, because, we got the 392. Even this so recently, the 50/50 Quadratec Jeep build. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, maybe we got this wrong. Maybe we should look at 2 doors, because the Ranger comes in an extended cab.
Yep.
The Tacoma can standard or extended cab versions. Mm-hmm. These are mid-sized trucks, and maybe there's a market for it.
Yep, maybe. And that's something worth looking at. But extended cab is a challenge. You say extended cab versus the 4-door. And it has to do with the fact of the structural integrity of a B-pillar.
Yeah.
That one between the doors. And an extended cab technically has no B-pillar.
You're right.
The rear door is the B-pillar that the front door latches into. And Jeep is still a body-on-frame vehicle. At least something changed since I looked. And that's one of the challenges with a body-and-frame vehicle. A unibody has inherent strength that can let you get away, with a folding B-pillar, which is a door. Not saying it can't be done. My Ford pickup has a folding B-pillar.
Yeah.
But that's a lot bigger door, a lot more mass in it, and you know it when you open that back door. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to say, okay, how do I make a removable door with a B-pillar in it that still meets the safety?
Oh, you know what? You're right. I didn't even think about that.
So it's one of the, well, I'm sorry. I'm born an engineer. I'll die an engineer and probably, be cursed that way. But the key there is that, you look at all of those things, and that's, I think, one of the reasons that Jeep decided, okay, 2-door we can do. We got history with 2-door.
Yeah.
4-door we can do.
Yeah. Crew cab or extended cab? No.
Extended cab?
Yeah.
Well, they could, but there's no roof steel. Would you
Yeah.
buy a Jeep with a solid roof, a non-removable roof? Would it be a Wrangler even if you had a non-removable roof?
Yeah.
So those are those things. Remember, if we go back to 2019 at SEMA, there was a 4-door that was that Surf Safari blue that had no windows. It was cut open, and so it had B-pillars, but they didn't go anywhere. And I remember talking to them when they were there on the display. I'm like, how in the heck does that rear door not fold in? And the guy said, I don't know. There's something really weird. He says, I don't think it's road legal.
Yeah. This is not the production model.
You know, you'd almost have to have a back bar like you have in a cage system that runs behind the front seat to tie 2 half B pillars together so you could hinge doors off of that might stand a chance of surviving a rollover test.
I didn't even think about the removable door when I said crew cab or extended cab. No, you're right. That I will concede that.
Oh, believe me, I've thought lots of these things as I look at my Jeep and going, what am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? That won't kill me.
There's always that asterisk.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of funny that way.
That was asterisk, folks. Asterisk. I don't want to get
the little starry like.
Yeah, no.
Look down at the bottom of the page for what.
I don't want to that word and trick. No, that was not the word I used. All of a sudden, we're flagged.
Pronunciation.
Yeah,
asterisk.
Pronunciation or enunciation?
Either one.
That too. Ecclesiastic.
Now you're taking on a religion.
Oh, you're right. Holy cow. Well,
or were you trying for eclectic?
I don't know what I was trying for anymore. My mind is complete right now. Don't ask me how to spell that. No idea. Well, we hope you enjoyed your first show of the year, folks. Yeah. And just as we did last year, we actually got out to the Tennessee Jeep Invasion, Jasper. We got out to a couple events. I went out to the Florida Trail Team Challenge, Mark's event, which again, still check up on that. But hopefully this year we could get a little more wheeling done. Kevin and I, now that we're less on project, we're hoping to get more wheeling in. Yes,
actually getting more function and abilities. And as I settle down here, I still am working on getting my shop barn built. Yeah. Hope that happens in 2023. It was supposed to start in 2022 and didn't. But then again, the house was supposed to start before that. And yeah, life.
Danger, Will Robinson. Danger.
Yes, don't get me started on that.
Oh, look, it's Anger Cast with Kevin. Don't get too close, kids. He's wearing his purple pants and torn white shirt.
Huh?
Purple pants and torn white shirt. The Hulk.
Oh, never paid attention to that. Sorry.
There he is, folks. Let's give him a hand.
No, it's just when I saw that kind of stuff, you know, at my age, it was in a comic book, and purple was not an ink color they had. It was just whatever Bruce Banner was wearing, and it was torn, tattered shorts and green skin.
Well, back then it was torn bell bottoms. Ooh, gonna have to move.
How would you know?
I'm just guessing. I could. Okay, fine. Back in your day when you wore red comic books, they were on stone tablets, and he wore knight armor. Let's make sure you can't kick me here.
Remember, I work on your Jeep too.
That was a funny thing we didn't touch last show where Mark, he left one bolt and it jingled. He goes, I might just leave this. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I can do all. I said, you are not taping a harmonica to the front of my grill.
Oh. No, I like the long zip tie.
Yeah, no, that's the first thing I checked.
On the drive shaft. Thwack, 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 thwack.
And on that note, kids...
Other cruel and unusual things to scare your teammate.
Hey, as long as it's not wheel weights on the drive shaft, we're good.
Ooh.
Yeah, I've seen that done before, and that was not a pretty day.
No.
There was a lot of choice words, and something was thrown.
Oh, cool.
Full can of soda at high velocity.
And did it hit you?
Oh, I was a spectator on this. No. It was like
You're always a spectator if it misses.
Shh. Oh, look at the time.
Yes, well, folks. Again, happy 2023. May it be a better year than the last few.
Yes, please.
And with any Lex, we hope to see you either at an event or on the trail. Check us out on
the Trail Podcast at gmail.com or on our Facebook page, on our YouTube channel, on our Patreon channel, and everywhere else you'll find great content. Sorry, I lost it. Got my announcer voice, had all that done, and didn't have the brain. Phenomenal cosmic microphone power.
Folks, it was a wild night. So
It's been a day.
we hope this first show's good for you, and
Yes.
we're going to try and improve as 2023 rolls along. If you've got suggestions, as he said, send it to us to email or Facebook. Things you'd like, questions, comments, ideas,
Concerns, doesn't matter. We'll take it all.
We'll give it a shot.
Absolutely.
And with that, time to lock ups, put the Jeep in 4 low, hit the trail.
And remember to take nothing but pictures, memories, and your trash when you leave said trail, because we want to keep these trails open for our kids, and the squirrels.
Okay.
I'm sorry, that joke was a little nuts. All right, so on that, folks, you have a wonderful time, and we shall catch you guys on the next episode of 178, coming out to you on the 15th of January.
Bye now.
Bye.
Proceeding has been provided for entertainment only. Proper service and repair procedures are vital to the safe, reliable operation of all motor vehicles, as well as personal safety of those performing those repairs. Standard safety procedures and precaution, including the use of safety goggles and proper tools and equipment, should be followed at all times to eliminate the possibility of personal injury or improper service which could damage the vehicle or compromise its safety.
What he said. Thanks a lot for listening, guys. You guys have a great day.
Bye.
This has been a Bent Axle Media production.